Deanne Arbus. Deanne Arbus, 1923 to 1971. She preferred that her name be pronounced Deanne instead of Diane. The people and ideas that aroused the intense curiosity of Deanne Arbus were not to be found in the Family of Man exhibit, but on the outer fringe of society. Raised in an upper-middle-class Jewish family in New York and educated at the Progressive Ethical Cultural School, the same school that Strand and Hine were involved with, she studied to be a writer, and luckily we have many of her notebooks and letters to examine her highly intelligent thoughts. She and her husband, Alan Arbus, did advertising photography for her father's fancy women's Fifth Avenue store, which led to a gig taking pictures for Harper's Bazaar, the magazine. Alan was the technician and Deanne was the stylist. Between 1955 and 1957, Deanne studied privately with Lisette Modell, who stressed that the most mysterious thing is a fact clearly stated. With emerging feminist awareness in the 1960s, there were new opportunities for women photographers. Arbus's interest shifted from the studio fashion work to a confrontational style that relied on frontal light, often a flash, to depict people sharply who seemed willing to reveal their hidden selves for the camera. What Arbus pictured often seemed sensationalist because she deliberately broke down people's public personas. Arbus photographed people in the margins of society so that their images were no longer about themselves, but about them as archetypes of human circumstances. People found her pictures distressing because the subjects did not fit into the American dream, even though they looked the part outwardly. She committed suicide in 1971, and after that her work took on a cult following. Arbus's favorite quote is from Goethe: "Every form correctly seen is beautiful." She took her camera everywhere. She would see people on the bus, the subway, or on a street and befriend them first before asking to take the photographs. It would take years before she got the photo she was looking for, such as the Jewish giant, the previous image, an 8-foot-tall, 495-pound original. She photographed him for 10 years. In this photo, the parents, particularly the mother, look in awe at almost shock at their creation. He is almost a fairy tale figure with a cane, disabled by the disease that caused him to grow so big. He had the same disease that ended up taking the life of Andre the Giant. Identical twins, Roselle, New Jersey, 1967. This has often been compared to the theatrical masks of tragedy and comedy. Also, it kind of feels like something from a Stephen King novel, The Shining. Red rum. Arbus believed that a photograph is a secret about a secret. The more it tells you, the less you know. She also said that photographing is not about being comfortable, either for the photographer or the subject, and you have to learn not to be careful. Her portraits were the result of her process of collecting and exchanging secrets that nobody wanted to share. Arbus knew that people did not want to look at what they perceived as horror, barely covered by a thin layer of human skin. Her quote, "Freaks was a thing I photographed a lot. It was one of the first things I photographed, and it had a terrific kind of excitement for me. I just adored them. I don't quite mean they're my best friends, but they made me feel a mixture of shame and awe. There's a quality of legend about freaks, like a person in a fairy tale who stops you and demands that you answer a riddle. Most people go through life dreading they'll have a traumatic experience. Freaks were born with their trauma, and they've passed their test in life. They're the true aristocrats." Her final series dealt with the developmentally challenged, or retards as they were known at the time, whose being and identity take us to the edge of the human experience. These images challenge the definition of self and confront viewers with the secret that nobody is normal. Her photographs are more about wanting to be normal and wanting to be accepted for who we are. The pain that masks the viewers. The pain that makes viewers avert their eyes is due to Arbus showing us that void in our inner perception and that of our outer public reality. Her photographs often appeared in Esquire magazine and were part of a trend towards personal journalism that used the front of documentary photojournalism to present a highly subjective view of the world. On this, she commented, "I do not want to have some slight corner on something about the quality of things. I mean, it's very subtle and a little embarrassing to me, but I really believe there are things in which nobody would see unless I photograph them." Woman with Locket, Washington Square Park, 1965. Teenage couple on Hudson Street, New York City, 1963. Puerto Rican woman with a beauty mark, New York City, 1965. Young couple on a bench, Washington Square Park, 1965. Mia Villers Farrow on a bed, 1964. Two ladies in an automat, New York City, 1966. An automat was kind of like a cafeteria as opposed to a restaurant. You walked in and all the food was basically in machines, and you dropped your change in and you were served either hot or cold meals. Kind of like a giant place with vending machines. A young Brooklyn family going for a Sunday outing, New York City, 1966. I love the cross-eyed look of the sun. Christmas tree in a living room, Levittstown, Long Island, 1963. All of these captions are exactly the way she wrote them. Mexican dwarf in his hotel room, New York City, 1970. Hermaphrodite and a dog in a carnival trailer, Maryland, 1970. Young man in curlers in home in New York City, 1966.